Dr. Engineering Engineer Agustin SCMD, the Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs.
Kasih besaran ya, nanti kasih zoom ya.
Ya, kasih zoom ke pembicaranya. Cuma itu.
Well,
Itu zoom 5 menit lagi habis.
we invite again the Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs and the guest Association for Japan. Prof. Konya, Prof. Daud, Bapak Hudin Karim, the Chair of the Committee and also the Secretary.
Ya, Pak.
Yang akan guru besar.
Iya, alamin. Amin amin. Pada kan ke WC. Pada kan ke WC. Pada kan ke WC.
Tolong kalau di sana.
Ini sama.
Ini kalau foto toh,
Iya.
kalau sementara.
Oh itu pada kan.
Our opening ceremony today. We will continue with the plenary session 1, but we will have a break first for about 10 minutes. So, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the coffee and snack provided at the back. Gentlemen, we will continue with plenary session 1.
Kedua.
Iya.
Belum.
And the moderator will be Bapak Mohtar Marhum, PhD. And Zarian Hashim, the master of ceremony of this opening ceremony, would like to say thank you very much for your kind attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning. Please welcome Bapak Mohtar Marhum, PhD.
Sudah?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Apa Mem?
wabarakatuh.
Oh nanti terang.
Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Good morning everyone. Welcome to the International Conference on Education. ICE stands for International Conference on Education. Well, the honorable guest, Bapak Rektor, represented by Vice Rector, Bapak Dr. Hussein, the honorable guest, Provincial Chief of Education, the honorable guest, Vice Rector, Director of Research Center, Director of Postgraduate School, keynote speakers, distinguished guests. For the first session, we're going to join presentation presented by Professor Hedi Sri Ahimsa Putra, MA, MPhil, PhD. I would like to invite Professor Hedi. Professor Hedi is from Medina University. Welcome, Prof. How are you doing? Professor Hedi is a professor in anthropology based in Faculty of Cultural Science. He is expert in ethnoscience. His educational background, he completed Bachelor of Social Science in Anthropology from Gajah University, and then his master degree from University of from Leiden University. And he also graduated from Columbia University. He received Master of Arts in Philosophy Doctor, PhD. So he's got 2 master degrees and PhD. It reminds me, my friend Muhammad Ali, he's got 2 MA and 3 master degree. MA, MPhD. So we call him Dr. Muhammad Ali Mama Mepet. Because he got 2 MA, MPhD, Mama Mepet. So you see. Well, Professor Hedi is very knowledgeable, well educated. He's been trained and educated overseas, European country, Netherlands, University of Leiden, and he received PhD, as I mentioned, from University of Columbia. Sounds like my hometown, Columbia, the hometown of Mr. Bean. He's from Columbia, London, That's similar, Columbia and Columbia. So we are very proud of our hometown. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you'll be able to participate in this conference. Later on, you may raise questions if you have, give comments, suggestions, corrections, recommendations as well. Now, in front of us, Professor Hedi, I would like to invite him to present his paper on ethnocide. Time is yours. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President.
Please.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, distinguished lecturers. Allow me first to thank Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, praise be to Allah, who has given us sufficient strength today so that we can gather here in this prestigious on education. And may Allah grant forever blessing and lasting blessings to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, to his family, to his kids, to his companions, to his community, to his ummah. Also, may Allah grant us everlasting blessings. Secondly, I would like to thank India, who has invited me to participate in this prestigious conference. Actually, I have sent the PowerPoint. Would you like can you show the PowerPoint? Allow me to set up a computer so that I can thank you.
Please go ahead. Excuse me, Prof. I just would like to remind you we have 45 minutes. 30 minutes presentation and question and answer session. So I will.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my paper is on ethnocide and education. Because in anthropology, we know that what we call local wisdom is also called as ethnocide. And this is the term that we have in anthropology. And as far as I know, the word ethnocide came from anthropology, that's my discipline. And I started to study this ethnocide in 19 1980s when I pursued my degree on master degree in anthropology at Leiden University, Universitas Leiden. Please, the second slide. Thanks. Okay. Now, what is ethnoscience? This is from the word actually ethno and science. And ethno in this case means ethnic group, or we call it suku bangsa in bahasa Indonesia. And science, scientific, that's actually knowledge and pengetahuan in our bahasa. So we can say that ethnoscience actually pengetahuan etnis or pengetahuan lokal, sometimes we call it. And in anthropology, it means it may mean three things, four things. First, this is a branch of field of study in anthropology. So in anthropology actually is a discipline which studies culture. So we study about the culture of the people, like in Sulawesi Tengah, we have a lot of ethnic groups, and we study their culture. We like to know the cultural diversity of the people and compare with each other. And one of the branch of knowledge and anthropology is what we call ethnoscience. And this focuses on the system of knowledge of the people. As you know, not all anthropologists are interested in local people's knowledge. Sometimes they are interested in rituals, in economics, and then in politics and law. But in ethnoscience, the focus is on sistem pengetahuan. Jadi ini adalah salah satu bidang dalam antropologi yang memfokuskan perhatian pada pengetahuan lokal atau pengetahuan suku-suku bangsa di berbagai macam tempat. Secondly, it is also a paradigm. Now it's already a paradigm, which means this is a theoretical framework that anthropologists use to study people, which is different from other paradigms. As we know that in anthropology we have several paradigms like evolutionism, diffusionism, structuralism, functionalism, but ethnoscience is another paradigm. This is a new paradigm which emerged or appeared due to the interest of anthropologists to the system of knowledge of the people. And then the paradigm is focused on analyzing and then presenting the knowledge of the people in such a way so that they can have a new ethnography, something like that. And then third, this is a research method in anthropology. As you know, studying economic of the people or political system of the people or the law of the people is different from studying that knowledge. Yang mempelajari sistem politik, mempelajari sistem ekonomi, mempelajari ritual, itu akan berbeda dengan mempelajari sistem pengetahuan masyarakat lokal. So in anthropology, we have new method to uncover. Kita punya metode baru untuk mengungkap the knowledge of the people, and that is also what we call ethnoscience. And fourth, this is the system of knowledge of an ethnic group. So if we study ethnoscience, we will try to uncover. Kita akan berusaha mengungkapkan pengetahuan lokal yang ada dalam suatu masyarakat dan kemudian menyaksikannya. When we already find the knowledge of the people and uncover that, we present it in our ethnography. That's why in ethnoscience or in anthropology, ethnoscience is also called the new ethnography. That is a new way of presenting the local knowledge of people, a new way of presenting their culture in such a way so that we can understand, oh, this is the system of the knowledge of the people. Next. Now, ethnoscience is about some American anthropologists. It started from methodological problems in anthropology, where some anthropologists how difficult it is in comparing the ethnographies of from several from famous anthropologists in the world. As we know that anthropologists do research in many ethnic groups. So we have thousands of ethnographies in the world. Because every year there are always anthropologists doing research on the ethnic group and then write their ethnography, and from this ethnography we try to compare one culture with another so that we can generalize, so that we can have some generalizations on the culture of the world, the culture of Filipino. And in that way, anthropology can become science. Because we try to get what we call generalization or law of the social culture of Filipino. And when anthropologists try to compare these ethnographies, the first problem that they encounter is the comparability of the ethnographies. It turns out that anthropologists do not have or do not give the same meaning for the core concept in anthropology, that is culture. So we have a lot of definitions of culture, hundreds of definitions. In 1950s, I think, Harvard Carson and Woodward just compiled the definitions of culture. And we had at the time already 250 definitions. So there are a lot of definitions. So that makes a problem in anthropology, because when you have given meaning of culture and try to study culture and then describe it, our ethnographies will become very useful. A lot of varieties in our ethnography. And the problem is that how to arrive at generalizations when we have so many ethnographies with a lot of variation. That is the problem. So some anthropologists can try to give a certain meaning or definition which is more basic or like a core of culture. And in anthropology, before that, we have three meanings of culture. First, it means products of human culture, like tables, chairs, food, and then our clothes, buildings. Some anthropologists call this culture. Some others think the literal things are not culture. The culture is the behavior of people. The way we talk, the way we eat, the way we drink, the way we sleep, the way we do seminars like this. This is what we call culture. That is actually the patterns of behavior. And then the third is people said culture is ideas or knowledge. So in anthropology, we have identified at least three broad meaning of anthropology, yaitu pengetahuan, perilaku, dan materiatif. Dan ini yang menjadi masalah ketika kita when we talk the culture and try to generalize ethnographies. The problem is how can we generalize it when we have to collect different data on culture. Ada banyak data mengenai kebudayaan sehingga ini sulit dibandingkan satu dengan yang lain. Okay, next. Then anthropologists said that we need consensus on the meaning of culture, and then anthropologists from America, that is Ward Ina, proposed new meaning for culture, which focus on the ideas. He said that culture is not a material phenomenon. It does not consist of things, people, behavior, or emotion. It is rather the organization of these things. It is the form of things that people have in mind. Their motives for perceiving, relating, and otherwise interpreting the message. The things that people say and do related to arrangement and events are products or byproducts of their culture as they apply it to the steps of perceiving and dealing with their circumstances. This is the definition which then give influence on anthropology. it really gives new influence because then our begin reading only on the system of ideas, not on behavior, not on material things. We focus on knowledge of the people. Then we can have ethno-science. Next. Now, anthropological research is then aimed at uncovering the system of knowledge of an ethnic group, a community. This is what we call now ethno-science, from the word ethnos and scientific, from Latin word. An ethnic knowledge system has been transmitted from generation and generation. So, why we try to uncover the ethno-science? Because people already use it for generations. Like in South Central Sulawesi, we have a lot of ethnic groups here, and they have already used their knowledge before the presence of what we call science in their lives. We don't have science before. What we have before is ethno-science, and we live using this ethno-science. So this is already science, and it's practiced from generation, transmitted from generation to another. So it has been tested for various events, for various needs, so that we can see that it contains various kinds of knowledge, ideas. It includes worldviews, values, norms, rules, knowledge of nature, about water, about season, about sea, about plants, about animals. So this is what we call ethno-science. Ethno-science is an ethnic pool of wisdom. We call it ethno-science. This ethnic pool of wisdom, because this is the wisdom of the people use in their everyday life. And they have survived for generations using this kind of knowledge. So this is a valid knowledge. From there, we now realize that ethno-science is not just simple things. It is very complicated, valid, reliable knowledge. Otherwise, people cannot live with their ethno-science. Now, you awareness about the world is science is not the only reliable knowledge. Valid knowledge. Other knowledge is also reliable, valid, and it has been used and has given benefits to humans. Its validity has been tested against various experiences. This is science that is one of the sciences produced by humans. Our knowledge about chemistry, physics, botany, zoology, and so forth. These are actually a branch of what we call science. Other branches are ethno-science, and they have the same status because they are also reliable and valid. Then, due to this awareness of the anthropologists, then we see the development of ethno-science. Next. We see that ethno-science research in various fields. Ethno-science includes a lot of things, and research is limited. It cannot cover all things. It can only focus on certain things. So research should be focused on practical phenomena on problem. And every group has various kinds of knowledge, environmental knowledge, ecological knowledge. Then we can call it ethno-ecology. So we not only have ecological knowledge from scientific, what we call scientific point of view, but we have also ethno-ecology, how the people actually look at their environment. And And farmer in this case, it's a concept includes a lot of things. Climate, soil, sea, rivers, and so forth. Then research should focus on particular field, particular things, animal, plant, and so forth. Then we have in ethno-science study, ethno-ecology, ethno-botany, ethno-zoology, and if you study what we call disaster or earthquake, then we can have ethno-earthquake, ethno-geology, ethno-biology. Then we have a lot of sciences in this world. Yeah. Okay, next. Now, these are branches of ethno-science. You see, ethno-science become very popular among other sciences, other scientists, because it's very interesting. And it covers a lot of things. We have ethno-science, not only can study natural things, but also studying art. So we have also ethno-art today, because art is not only from the Western people. Their art is done by a lot of ethnic groups in this world. Almost every ethnic group has their own art. So in this case, we have a lot of art, various kinds of art. And this year, they all have six status. Now, we have here ethno-ecology, ethno-mathematics, ethno-development, ethno-architecture. No. And then we have about soils, we have ethno-mythology. About astronomy, we have ethno-astronomy, because not only the Greeks who know about stars, celestial things, but also people in other areas of the world. Now, this is the branches of ethnology. And Sudan, yeah. So we have this ethnology, we have branches, sub-branches. We have ethnoveterinary, ethno-ornithology, because knowledge about birds is not owned only by Western people or by biologists, but also by local people. People in Papua have their knowledge about burung cendrawasih. Mereka punya pengetahuan yang menarik, but we don't know much about that. So we need to study the knowledge about burung. And we have a lot of birds in Indonesia, and a lot of ethnic groups have that knowledge about those birds. And they are also relying on valid knowledge. So we can uncover the knowledge, the precious knowledge. Okay, terus we have ethnobotany, ethnonutrition, ethnomedicine, ethnopharmacology, especially because we have jamu in Indonesia, and this is also medicine. Jadi ini bisa kita manfaatkan. Okay, lanjut. We have a lot of studies now, like this. These are some studies in science, which are knowledge, like one in Mozambique, and then from various parts of the world. I just give you some examples of books on ethnoscience. Lanjut, Mas. Next. Okay, then we have also methods and techniques, because if we have certain new branch of knowledge, I think you need methodology, new techniques of research. That's why we have also methods for research in ethnoscience, which is different from other methods of research in anthropology. So this is new. And then we have also introduction to ethnobiology, because studying ethnobiology is different from studying just biology. We can study biology at the university, but if you want to study ethnobiology, then you have to go to the people to ask them about their knowledge of many things about biology. Then we have ethnobotany and physical, agriculture, of course. So There are already many kinds of study using science perspective for looking at many things. Then we have money and then medical plans. I'm sure that you are here in Central Sulawesi. You have a lot of science. We'll see that. Lanjut. Pharmacology. You have local medicines, I think, obat-obatan lokal, jamu, kalau di Jawa, saya tidak tahu mana namanya di sini. I don't know what's the word for jamu in something or in kayu. And then we have pharmacology and wild plants. Jadi banyak sekali tanaman-tanaman di luar itu yang dapat kita manfaatkan untuk farmasi, untuk farmakologi, untuk pengobatan. Tapi kita tidak memanfaatkannya. Atau memandangnya mungkin sebagai pengetahuan yang tidak ilmiah, tapi itu sebenarnya sudah sangat bermanfaat untuk kita semua. Oke, lanjut. Now we have this endocrinology research yang sudah dilakukan dari separuh pulau Asia Pasifik, India, lanjut. Kemudian yang sama Indonesia. Endocrinology and medicine pendidikan yang profesional dan mereka mempelajari ini karena memang obat-obatan saya kira sangat-sangat banyak di dunia ini. Lanjut. Now, this is a picture of branches of ethnozoology. You know that ethnozoology is sub-branch of ethnoscience. Now we have branches in ethnozoology. So we have a lot of ethnoscience here. With UBS, with with prefix lanjut. Nah, animals and famous parts of the world, and I'm sure we have also knowledge about animals here in Central Sulawesi. Lanjut. Astronomy. I think people here have also knowledge about astronomy, about stars, kalau perbintangan, about musim, season dan so forth. I'm sure they have it, but maybe we do not study that kind of knowledge. I think in the future, what we need is studying these things, this knowledge further, deeper and deeper. Lanjut. Now, this is astronomy. We already have a lot of studies in this field. Lanjut. Architecture. We have here in Indonesia we have a lot of traditional buildings, and those buildings must have some philosophies behind them. When people build their homes or design their settlements, they must have some kind of views of the world, must have some kind of philosophies in that place. So we need to understand what kind of philosophy, worldviews, that they have. So they build their house in such a way, in that kind of models, or how they arrange the settlement in their area. Now, what is the potentials of ethnoscience in Central Sulawesi? Apa potensi Sulawesi Tengah ethnoscience? The basis of ethnoscience is ethnic group. The more ethnic group, the greater potentials of ethnoscience research. The greater the need for ethnoscience research. Central Sulawesi has many ethnic groups. Most of them are not yet well studied.
Kita akan lanjut pada sesi berikutnya. Thanks a lot. And we give a big applause to the speakers. Thanks a lot. Next session. Next session. Silakan. Terima kasih. Selamat datang Pak Wali. Pak Presiden.
Okay.
Okay, let's give a big applause for our
Question. It's professor in language learning. Will you answer? I noticed. Will you answer immediately or
collect the. I think it's better to collect the questions. Next, Pak Pak Imran. Pak Imran is a lecturer at CIPIX, education, CIPIX education.
Oke, terima kasih banyak. Terima kasih banyak. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Saya dari program studi supaya kelihatan ini seminar internasional, saya coba menggunakan 4 bahasa. 4 bahasa Kaili sebagai local wisdom, ya. Kemudian yang pertama tadi sudah saya pakai bahasa Arab dengan Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ya. Kemudian bahasa Indonesia mungkin lebih banyak daripada bahasa Inggris. Ya. Nah, bahasa Indonesia lebih banyak daripada bahasa Inggris. Kalau tadi Prof. Konder Manurung itu orang bahasa Inggris, ya. Jadi dia mahir untuk bahasa Inggris. Jadi saya mencoba memberanikan diri bertanya walaupun saya tidak paham dengan bahasa Inggris, tapi I have 3 questions, ya, for Professor. Yeah. I have 2 questions for Professor. One, what is local wisdom? And what the meaning local wisdom in Palu city contextual in society, humanity? Kemudian how to apply it? Ya, how to apply it? Local wisdom, ya, local wisdom in Palu. Ya, dalam ini kalau kita lihat dari etnografinya tadi, mayoritasnya orang Kaili, suku Kaili, Pak. Ya. Jadi saya lihat how to apply it in community Palu City. Ya. Kemudian yang terakhir, ya mungkin ini karena ini di perguruan tinggi, ya tentunya nanti kita akan melihat konteksnya bagaimana penerapan local wisdom itu dalam mengakomodir kebutuhan lokal. Itu lebih penting. Saya pakai bahasa Indonesia supaya jelas. Ya, karena saya tidak tahu lagi pakai bahasa Inggris. Ya, tapi kita lihat dari sisi penerapannya di dunia pendidikan tinggi khususnya terkait dengan local wisdom itu. Nah, saya berharap dulu sudah kami sampaikan pada pimpinan, kalau tidak adalah semacam kuota, ya, yang diberikan khusus.
Pak Imran bisa
sehingga bisa terimplementasi itu local wisdom itu, ya. Ini local wisdom tapi dalam seminar internasional kan, seperti begitu. Nah, ini mungkin yang perlu kita antisipasi. Saya terkesan juga dengan orang Inggris, Pak. Kalau orang Inggris datang di Palu tidak mau dia pakai bahasa Inggris. Dia justru gosok dengan bahasa Indonesia kita. Nah, seperti itu. Yang mudah-mudahan ya 3 pertanyaan itu bisa dijelaskan. Pertama adalah what the meaning-nya, kemudian applied-nya, seperti itu. Oke, terima kasih banyak.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Imran, lecturer CIPIX Education. Next, Bu Dr. Ulinsa, Language Department.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, good afternoon, tabe. Selamat datang Pak Wali Kota, yang saya hormati Warek 1 dan terkhusus pada Profesor sebagai narasumber yang luar biasa pada hari ini. Baik, sebelum saya mengajukan pertanyaan atau question, saya akan berpantun dulu. Ya. Jalan-jalan ke Tanah Kaili. Jangan lupa membawa siri. Para hadirin duduk di sini menanti pertanyaan dan jawaban yang luar biasa. Oke, saya di sini menggunakan 4 bahasa, tapi saya tambah 1 karena ada tamu dari Jepang. Jadi 5. Ya, tetapi saya menggunakan Trigatra Bangun Bahasa, utamakan bahasa Indonesia, budayakan bahasa daerah dan kuasai bahasa asing. Karena apa? Perjuangan yang sangat luar biasa yang dilakukan oleh pihak dari Badan Bahasa, khususnya Kepala Badan, memperjuangkan bahasa Indonesia sebagai bahasa ke-10 yang diresmikan di UNESCO Prancis, Paris. Ya. Pertanyaan saya awali dengan bahasa Indonesia. Apa harapan Prof sebagai seorang antropologi terhadap penerapan etnosains di dalam pembelajaran itu saya kategorikan masih rendah. Karena kurangnya implementasi terkait budaya di dalam proses pembelajaran. Dan ini berdampak pada pendidikan karakter. Karena apa? Hilangnya budaya akan memberikan dampak yang sangat besar terhadap masalah karakter setiap individu. Itu pertanyaan saya. Jadi harapannya, karena ini konferensi internasional, saya berusaha juga untuk menggunakan bahasa asing. Oke. What are your expectations regard of the low level of application ethnoscience in learning strategies which has an impact and cultural shift which of course have an impact and character shift in individualists, including shift in attitudes positive towards Indonesian and regional languages. Thank you. Jadi salah satu yang bergeser adalah bagaimana sikap positif kita terhadap bahasa Indonesia dan juga sebagai bahasa daerah sebagai bagian dari budaya bangsa. Terima kasih. Thank you. Songkompuasi. Arigato gozaimasu.
Terima kasih Ibu Dr. Ulinsa. Next please. Pak Dr. Komarudin. Oh siapa? Oh 3 saja. Because time constraint. Mr. Director of General.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. I'll try to answer it in bahasa Indonesia and explain it a little bit in bahasa Inggris. Karena ini penting untuk pengetahuan kita semua. Pertama, terima kasih Prof. Manurung atas tanggapannya dan pertanyaannya. Tadi pertanyaannya.
Pertanyaan dari Prof. Konder, the questions regarding the local languages. He mentioned that the higher education background, the less local languages used by well-educated people.
Ya, memang ada problem berkenaan dengan pandangan kita mengenai bahasa lokal. Ya. Tentu kita akan punya problem ketika berhadapan dengan bahasa Indonesia yang memang lebih kita terapkan sehari-hari. Nah, apa policy yang bisa kita pakai atau kita wujudkan dalam upaya ini? Pertama, asumsi dasar kita adalah our first assumption is that ethnoscience is preserved in local languages. Pengetahuan lokal itu ada dalam bahasa-bahasa lokal. Jadi kalau bahasa lokal itu punahlah pengetahuan lokal. Nah, apa kemudian langkah kita? Ya lestarikan bahasa lokal. Bagaimana caranya? Nah, disitulah peran para ahli linguistik bermain. Nah, kita bisa kemudian mencoba mencari guru atau bukan mencari, mendidik guru-guru bahasa daerah. Itu nomor 1 Ibu dan Pak sekalian. Saya riset, saya orang Jawa. Riset saya di Bantaeng, Sulawesi Selatan. Dan saya minta belajar bahasa Bantaeng. Nggak ada yang bisa ngajari saya. Karena nggak ada guru. Tapi saya orang antropologi, saya diajari. Bagaimana belajar bahasa lokal tanpa guru. Dan akhirnya dalam waktu seminggu, saya tidak menyombongkan diri, saya menguasai bahasa Bantaeng. Saya bisa ngomong dengan orang Bantaeng. Karena apa? Saya tahu tata bahasa dan saya tahu bagaimana mencari tata bahasa. Setelah itu tinggal nambah kosakata. Nah, kalau ada 30 suku bangsa, first what we have to do is preserve the local language. Artinya study the local language.
pelajari bahasa lokal, ditulis. Sehingga kita punya buku ajar 30 suku bangsa di Sentral Sulawesi ini. Kalau Tadulako melakukan itu hebat sekali. Karena belum ada universitas yang melakukannya, setahu saya di Indonesia. Bahkan UGM juga belum. Karena apa? Sentral Jawa itu semuanya orang Jawa, gitu kan? Nggak banyak suku yang lain, Pak. Lain dengan di sini. Jadi tantangannya lebih besar. Karena itu sangat penting. It's very important that you preserve the local languages. Artinya apa? You do research on local language, ya. Kemudian write, ya, the grammar, kemudian buat kamus, ya, bahasa lokal ke bahasa Indonesia. Why not? Orang-orang Belanda dulu melakukannya, ya kan? Ada kamus Belanda ke bahasa daerah, bahasa Belanda ke bahasa Sumba, bahasa Belanda ke bahasa Jawa, ya banyak, ya kan? Nah, jadi kita bisa melakukannya. Oke, jadi itu yang pertama bisa dilakukan. Tugas Universitas Tadulako menurut saya salah satunya adalah itu. Universitas itu research bahasa lokal, kemudian ditulis menjadi sesuatu yang formal, ilmiah, jadikan buku pelajaran, masukkan ke SD, SMP, sehingga ada pelajaran bahasa Kali, bahasa apa lagi, masuk di sana. Nah, itu yang perlu dilakukan pertama kali. Nah, kemudian dari bahasa itu kita akan tahu, oh ini namanya ini, namanya ini, namanya ini. Jadi peluang research banyak sekali. You have a lot of potentials for research in here. Ya. Jadi itu yang perlu dilakukan. Ya. Oh, oke, baik. Sebentar, karena saya harus mempercepat waktunya. Intinya pertama adalah research. Kemudian setelah kita punya hasil research itu, ajarkan di sekolah-sekolah. Ya. Dan kemudian ya terus research. Dan kemudian menerapkannya, karena persoalannya adalah kita belum punya pengetahuan tentang pengetahuan lokal ini. Local wisdom apa? Pertanyaan yang sangat penting tadi. Di dalam definisi saya, ini adalah pengetahuan-pengetahuan lokal untuk menyelesaikan masalah-masalah yang dihadapi, Pak. Tidak harus filsafat yang muluk-muluk, tidak. Yang sehari-hari, untuk sakit dan sebagainya. Oke, saya kira itu.
Terima kasih.
Kalian,
Makasih,
karena
Prof.
waktunya
Jadi,
tidak cukup lagi.
untuk jawaban Pak Imran,
Thank you very much for all his attention.
Pak Imran dengan Ibu Linsa, nanti Japri lewat email. Penutup Prof. Jadi Profesor David Crystal mengatakan dari Cambridge University, beliau prihatin bahwa 50% bahasa di dunia akan punah. Termasuk tadi Toli-Toli tidak masuk. Kampung kelahiran saya, Kabupaten Toli-Toli tidak masuk. Padahal Dondo ada dalam list yang resmi, tanah kelahiranku. Itu karena bahasanya salah satu yang masuk dalam bahasa yang terancam punah. Profesor Crystal katakan, when the local language disappear, there will be social tragedy. Itu yang terjadi. Ketika bahasa lokal punah, maka akan terjadi tragedi sosial. Dan ada 200.000 bahasa yang dikuasai, itu akan masuk dalam moribund kategori. Demikian jawaban akan dijawab oleh Pak secara Japri, ya.
Will you suggest us in Sulawesi Tengah so that this various culture, the richness of this culture can be brought out? For example, here we have some years ago a terrible disaster. Yeah, I'm glad that Professor from Japan is here today with us. Probably they can give us solution to this kind of disaster. And then how will we do a kind of education to people in Sulawesi Tengah so that they will be alert?
Memang lebih kita terapkan sehari-hari. Nah, apa policy yang bisa kita pakai atau kita wujudkan dalam upaya ini? Pertama, asumsi dasar kita adalah our first assumption is that ethnoscience is preserved in local languages. Pengetahuan lokal itu ada dalam bahasa-bahasa lokal. Jadi kalau bahasa lokal itu punahlah pengetahuan lokal. Nah, apa kemudian langkah kita? Ya lestarikan bahasa lokal. Bagaimana caranya? Nah, disitulah peran para ahli linguistik bermain. Nah, kita bisa kemudian mencoba mencari guru, atau bukan mencari, mendidik guru-guru bahasa daerah. Itu nomor satu, Ibu dan Pak sekalian. Saya riset, saya orang Jawa. Riset saya di Bantaeng, Sulawesi Selatan. Dan saya minta belajar bahasa Bantaeng, nggak ada yang bisa ngajari saya. Karena nggak ada guru. Tapi saya orang antropologi, saya diajari bagaimana belajar bahasa lokal tanpa guru. Dan akhirnya dalam waktu seminggu, saya tidak menyombongkan diri, saya menguasai bahasa Bantaeng. Saya bisa ngomong dengan orang Bantaeng. Karena apa? Saya tahu tata bahasa dan saya tahu bagaimana mencari tata bahasa. Setelah itu tinggal nambah kosakata. Nah, kalau ada 30 suku bangsa, first what we have to do is preserve the local language. Artinya study the local language. Pelajari bahasa lokal, ditulis. Sehingga kita punya buku ajar 30 suku bangsa di sentral Sulawesi ini. Kalau Tadulako melakukan itu, hebat sekali. Karena belum ada universitas yang melakukannya, setahu saya, di Indonesia. Bahkan UGM juga belum. Karena apa? Sentral Jawa itu semuanya orang Jawa, gitu kan? Nggak banyak suku yang lain, Pak. Lain dengan di sini. Jadi tantangannya lebih besar. Karena itu sangat penting, it's very important that you preserve the local languages. Artinya apa? You do research on local language, ya. Kemudian write, ya, the grammar, kemudian buat kamus, ya, bahasa lokal ke bahasa Indonesia. Why not? Orang-orang Belanda dulu melakukannya, ya kan? Ada kamus Belanda ke bahasa daerah, bahasa Belanda ke bahasa Sumba, bahasa Belanda ke bahasa Jawa, ya banyak, ya kan? Nah, jadi kita bisa melakukannya. Oke, jadi itu yang pertama bisa dilakukan. Tugas Universitas Tadulako menurut saya salah satunya adalah itu. Universitas itu research bahasa lokal, kemudian ditulis menjadi sesuatu yang formal, ilmiah, jadikan buku pelajaran, masukkan ke SD, SMP, sehingga ada pelajaran bahasa Kali, bahasa apa lagi, masuk di sana. Nah, itu yang perlu dilakukan pertama kali. Nah, kemudian dari bahasa itu kita akan tahu, oh ini namanya ini, namanya ini, namanya ini. Jadi peluang research banyak sekali. You have a lot of potentials for research in here. Ya. Jadi itu yang perlu dilakukan. Ya. Oh, oke, baik. Sebentar, karena saya harus mempercepat waktunya. Intinya pertama adalah research. Kemudian setelah kita punya research, hasil research itu ajarkan di sekolah-sekolah. Ya. Dan kemudian ya terus research. Dan kemudian menerapkannya, karena persoalannya adalah kita belum punya pengetahuan tentang pengetahuan lokal ini. Local wisdom apa? Pertanyaan yang sangat penting tadi. Di dalam definisi saya, ini adalah pengetahuan-pengetahuan lokal untuk menyelesaikan masalah-masalah yang dihadapi, Pak. Tidak harus filsafat yang muluk-muluk, tidak. Yang sehari-hari untuk sakit dan sebagainya. Oke, saya kira itu.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, karena
Prof.
waktunya
Jadi,
tidak cukup lagi.
untuk jawaban Pak Imran,
Thank you very much for all your attention.
Pak Imran dengan Ibu Linsa, nanti Japri lewat email. Penutup Prof. Jadi Profesor David Crystal mengatakan dari Cambridge University, beliau prihatin bahwa 50% bahasa di dunia akan punah. Termasuk tadi Toli-Toli tidak masuk. Kampung kelahiran saya, Kabupaten Toli-Toli tidak masuk. Padahal Dondo ada dalam list yang resmi, tanah kelahiranku. Itu karena bahasanya salah satu yang masuk dalam bahasa yang terancam punah. Profesor Crystal katakan, when the local language disappear, there will be social tragedy. Itu yang terjadi. Ketika bahasa lokal punah, maka akan terjadi tragedi sosial. Dan ada 200.000 bahasa yang dikuasai, itu akan masuk dalam moribund kategori. Demikian jawaban akan dijawab oleh Pak secara japri, ya. Iya. Iya. Kita akan lanjut pada sesi berikut. Thanks a lot. And we give a big applause to the speaker. Thanks a lot anyway. Padakan. Next session. Next session, Arif. Mana Arif? Silakan. Terima kasih. Selamat datang Pak Wali. Maaf There's a delay.
International Conference on Education, hosted by Faculty of Education and Teacher Training, Tadulako University. My name is Arif, your moderator for this second plenary session. On behalf of the committee, I'd like to state again, we have a very outstanding lineup of speakers today. Just before we get into the presentation, allow me to briefly introduce you to our distinguished speaker today. He is known for efforts in post-disaster recovery, urban development, and economic growth. Community service to enhance sustainable education in digital era. We cordially expect Mr. Hadianto Rashid to give us some sort of insights about the education policies of Palu City government and how it is tailored with local needs. Allow me to inform you, Mr. Hadianto, that you have 30 minutes for the presentation and 15 minutes for the Q&A session. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a huge pleasure for me to present the stage to Mr. Hadianto Rashid, the Mayor of Palu City. Over to you, Mr. Hadianto.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Say good morning or good afternoon to everybody. All distinguished forum participants that attending this forum today. This is a big honor for me that given by University of Tadulako to become one of the speakers among the best keynote speakers that already attending this forum. Today we are talking about the local wisdom. So how to make local wisdom, especially the language, as the identity of local wisdom, that can be a need among us. As long the language as the identity of local wisdom cannot be the need among of us. So I think we have a great homework how to find out the way to make local wisdom, especially language. I mean local language. Local language can be the priority, especially. I don't know. It's hard for me to say, is it a priority for the government at this time? It's hard for me to answer. Why? Because as we know, the technology recently brought us to the digital area. That we want how to make the digital area can be related to what we want, like how to preserve and enhance our local wisdom, especially local language. Language can be something worthy, something can be applied by many people. Even if we go to Japan, if you speak Indonesian in Japan, we just hold the translator pocket, then we say something in Indonesian and it's translated to Japan. So same when in Japan want to say something in Indonesian, he's speaking translated to pocket and it's translated to Indonesian. So what about if people come to Bali? Is the local language is now being a major language in our city? The answer is no. The answer is no. So that's what I mean. Is this the priority in this Yeah, that's a big question. So that's why it's hard for me to say how the position of the government to support how the local Muslim, especially the local language, has been more really worth it for the people in power. Of course, there are some steps that the government can do for the state. Like at this time, we are compiling the guidelines for the teacher how to teach the children, I mean the students by publishing the book of kindness. But still a big question and still a big challenge for us how to make a local language as the representative of local wisdom can be more worthy, have a value and become a priority. I mean, in Israel. That's my whole speech.
Yep. A big question has been raised by the Mayor of Palu City about the importance. Is it a priority integrating local language into the curriculum, or should it be be the priority of the policy of Palu City government? The mayor even raised that big question.
When someone wants to apply a job, this is not the term of condition. This is not the term of condition that someone has to or have to master the local language.
It's not part of the requirement in it.
Yeah. In our economic activity, like in the market, the question is the local language become the main language among the what is it? The transaction?
The answer is no.
The answer is no. So, if the government want to spend, I don't want to say a big budget or something like that, or budget for that. So the question is, what do they need?
What's the return?
But I believe, like what the professor said just now, when the people, I mean, when we are not master our local language, and when the people see the local language is not worth it anymore, and it can a distinction because of it. So it means we lose our culture.
Right. I see where you're going, Mr. Hadianto. Well, if the Palu City government, let's say, implement a kind of holistic policy to make the local language, holistically applied into the policy for all the teachers, for the students all around Palu, what would be the return? Meanwhile, that's not part of the requirement for job, let's say, something. I think that'd be quite interesting if we hear some voices of some scholars in here, because I'm pretty sure they should have some, thoughts in their mind about it. If you don't mind, you can take 2 questions, please. So Q&A session, if you would like to, shouldn't be always a question, by the way. If you willing.
For me actually to be here and meet you in person, Pak Wali Kota. And I would like to say, actually, I am your big fan. I am one of your followers on Instagram, actually, Pak. So my name is Nafira. Yeah. And my IG ID is Vira Labino, so I hope you can follow me after this. Alright, so actually, sir, I have commented once in your Instagram account, but I didn't get noticed at all. I said that I'm
geniuses.
And applause first for our beloved mayor. All right, so I go directly to the questions here. I'm really listening to your presentation actually today. So my question is, what strategies, as I saw in your PPT, lack of interest from the young generation. So my question is, what strategies can be implemented to spark interest in local languages and generation in Palu? Chizzy. Thank you so much, Pak. It's very nice to see you.
That's what I'm saying to you. It's very hard to answer it. Okay? Yeah, because in our daily activity, you see, thank you, Nicky. Yeah. You see in our people daily activity, it's the local language take the part as the tool of the communication among of our people. This is not look like what we want. I can say almost of our people, they doesn't use their local language to speak each other. Even at home at this time, it's very rarely. We heard the people in people's house that using a local language to communicate each other. So how to make how the strategy? Yeah, of course we have a strategy for it. But how to make this strategy more effective? We are here now talking about the research, talking about community service, how to make understanding. Having the strategy that we believe, all of us believe that the strategy can be really effective to boost the people. Especially the teenagers or the youth, can see the local language very interesting.
Okay, just a quick one, Mr. Mayor. How do you ensure that policy strategy address the young generation as expected?
I can say it because I'm a mayor. I can say that because I'm a mayor.
So you will
policy. The policy can refer to the rules. But remember, the rules that come from who?
You are the one who makes the policy.
What University of Tadulako had today is talking about the local wisdom, how to encourage it, how to enhance it, to make her more strength. Yeah, I agree with that, and I give appreciation, and I am ready to support it.
Seems like collaboration with Tadulako University is a must for us. Government policy and Tadulako University. Right. So, and quite unfortunate, as she said, she follows your Instagram account, but you don't follow her back. Unfortunately.
Let me check it out.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding out, by the way.
I'll follow you then.
Okay, right. So, we deeply apologize due to the very limited time of the mayor. So we will only take one question, unfortunately. Maybe for the last thing, we do apologize, Ibu. We have a very limited of time. If you have some questions, you can send it to. If some people have questions to you, Mr. Mayor, maybe they can. How they can send the questions.
Wali kota peneliti dari Jepang, Center Seminar Internasional.
Ibu Dr. Musian Tamrin Emily, and also the Dean of Teacher Training and Education Faculty, Tadulako University, Bapak Dr. Jamaluddin MSc, to give certificate of appreciation, and also souvenirs to our keynote speakers today. The Mayor of Palu, Bapak Haji Hadianto Rashid, SA,
profesi apapun di dunia ini mesti memiliki pengakuan sertifikasinya dulu sebelum dia menduduki jabatan profesinya. Bapak Ibu tentu paham betul kalau Bapak Ibu pergi ke dokter, Bapak Ibu datang ke general practitioner, ke dokter, maka Bapak Ibu yakin tidak akan datang ke dokter yang belum pernah mengikuti praktek dokter atau koas. Karena sesungguhnya mereka sudah expert, sudah sarjana kedokteran, tetapi mereka belum koas, belum praktek